What exactly is method acting? So many people have heard of method acting, and so many people think that they know what method acting is, but it remains the most misunderstood acting technique, I think, in history. And it's also one of the most frequently used in film and television today. So a lot of people don't really get what it is. I made a video about 7 years ago called What Exactly is Method Acting? So this is actually part 2, 7 years later. That video generated a ridiculous amount of views. There were 35,000, I think, is last time I looked. And there were lots of comments too, both positive and negative. Although the negative ones were really, really nasty and angry. It seems that there were a lot of people that felt that in a 3-minute video I was supposed to teach them method acting, which takes a little more than 3 minutes. I do teach a condensed version of method, but not that condensed. So today's video might be a little bit longer, and I'm going to take those negative comments to heart, although I did delete most of the really nasty ones. But I want to address what they were seeking, which is a better understanding of method acting. So first I'll start with some of what I covered in that video, which is method acting, plain and simple, is the technique taught by Lee Strasberg, okay? Created by Lee Strasberg. It is not created by Stanislavski. It is not the method taught by Sandy Meisner or Stella Adler or Uta Hagen, all of which I have seen method acting attributed to. So Strasberg created the method. He based it in Stanislavski's teachings, but it's his own technique. Stanislavski himself said, I don't want this to be thought of as a system or method, because he wanted it to continue to evolve as acting evolves. Strasberg didn't have that problem and was happy to say, this is the method and it's mine. So in a nutshell, that's what method acting is. Next, I'd like to address some misconceptions, some really common ones, such as when I ask an actor on set, and an experienced actor, I mean, I coach series regulars and people that have a good deal of experience. And when they say something like they'll look at someone's performance and they'll say, wow, that was very method. And I'll say, what exactly does that mean? Very method. And they'll hem and haw for a moment, and then they'll generally say something like, it's a very emotional form of acting. And to which I will say, don't all techniques in acting create emotion? Isn't that the point? Well, yeah, but, and I don't get a straight answer. The other misconception I get frequently is, yeah, method acting is where you live the part off camera. So you continue to live the character off camera, such as Daniel Day-Lewis famously did with Lincoln and other movies. And the confusion comes from the fact that Daniel Day-Lewis is a method-trained actor, and he does use that technique. But the thing is, staying in character after they say cut is not part of method. Okay, so while Daniel Day-Lewis may be a method actor, that part of what he does is not part of the technique. Now, I'm not going to criticize Daniel Day-Lewis or his acting. Obviously, that works for him. Great, and I'm not telling anybody not to do it or that or anything, but it doesn't make it a part of this technique. Okay, just so we're clear on that. Living the life of the character off camera is not a part of method acting. Okay, so getting to the point now, as we probably are near 3 minutes, what exactly is method acting? How does it work? And I'll share that with you. Method acting uses real memories and real experiences from the actor's life in order to trigger real emotions. Now, it is not, as is commonly believed, It is not a case of, oh, I'll think of a memory when Fluffy got run over by a steamroller and that makes me cry. Okay, well, that's not method. That's not a technique. While it may work, you may think of, oh, poor Fluffy, and a tear comes to your eye and you cry about it. And obviously you can substitute whatever memory you're thinking of. But that can cause you to cry. But the thing is, if you do that over and over and over again, what happens is eventually you become jaded to that memory, okay? And then you can think about it all you want, but you don't end up crying. It takes a while, but that's what happens. It gets less and less effective. And so that's not really practical, right? It may work tomorrow for something, right? But then it may not work next week or next month, okay? So the way that the way that method does this is, instead of accessing it by thinking of the memory and then feeling an emotion, you focus on the senses. So you literally relive the memory as opposed to thinking about it. And you go back and you focus on what the temperature felt like in the room, what smells were there in the room. And you don't just think of them, you try to smell them. I know that sounds like, oh, that's not possible, whatever, but the reality is it's very possible, and in fact, it's the linchpin of this technique. It holds it all together. The way that it works is you get better at fooling your brain, essentially, using your imagination. So to get into shape, the sit-ups of method, you do what are called sense memory exercises, and they are designed to help you believe that you're feeling things that we know we're not really feeling. So for example, one of the starter sense memory exercises is feel the sun. And I think that's a really good one to start with because it's so simple, right? And so the first thing that you would do is you would go outside and you would feel the sun, okay? Just feel it on your body, right? Then you would go inside and you would close your eyes and imagine that you're feeling the sun, and you try to feel the heat of the sun on your face and your body, right? And it feels different. So you try it, right? So you do it outside, then you do it inside. That's one sense memory exercise. You've done one rotation, okay? You got to do it 2 times. So then you go back out and you feel the sun again. And this time you're like, oh, wow, that's way hotter than I was imagining. That's right. And it feels different through my clothes than it does on my bare skin. And the back of my neck gets a little bit cool and clammy from perspiration. And it's really bright under my eyelids, right? With my eyes closed looking at the sun. And then you go back inside and you try to feel it again. And now you feel it a little bit more specifically and more clearly. And now you actually do feel some of the heat from this. That's 2 rotations. You do it about 10 or 12 times at least, okay? And then by that time, you should be pretty clearly feeling actual warmth. And you can take your body temperature. There's a lot of ways to check this. I'll give you another example, and you can try these at home. This is one that I love. It's not one of Strasberg's original ones, but I think it's really effective. So what I do is I take people through what I call the lemon exercise, which is essentially you imagine you're sitting in front of a refrigerator on a stool. And you reach out and you grab the handle, you feel the temperature of the handle, you pull on it and you feel that suction from the refrigerator, and then you pull it open and you feel the rush of cold air, right? And then you look in the center of the shelf in front of you, there is a little bowl of lemon wedges, sliced lemon wedges. And so you reach in and you pull out one lemon wedge. And you hold it in your hand, you feel the weight of it, you feel the rind and the little pits and valleys, and you really examine it and really feel it. Now, this is done imaginarily, okay? So in other words, you're not really in front of the fridge, you are imagining it. And although you use your hand and you hold the lemon wedge or the fake lemon wedge in your hand and try to feel the weight of it, it's not about pantomime. Sense memory is not about pantomime, although you do move and use your hand. it's about you trying to really feel it. So what I'm doing now with my hand is I'm trying to feel the weight of the lemon and the coolness and the moistness of the lemon rind and the peaks and valleys, like I said. And then I'll tell the class to, okay, lift it up to your nose and just gently squeeze on it and try to smell the fragrance. Try to smell that lemon. It's very delicate, but you can do it. And so everybody tries. And then when everybody's really focused, I'll say, okay, now I want you to take a big bite right to the bottom of that lemon, all the way to the rind. Go. And everybody bites into it and chews on it. And I talk about it exploding in your mouth and the pustules of lemon juice and all that kind of stuff. And it's cold from the fridge and all that. And then I say, okay, now relax. And how many people felt their mouths water? And generally, I would say, without any exaggeration at all, I get about 50 to 75% who say, yes, I did. And 20 to 30% that don't, right? That didn't really feel their mouth water. But the thing is, it's Pavlov's dog, right? It's your body being fooled into thinking that you're actually biting into a lemon to some extent. And so the people that didn't feel the saliva, that doesn't matter. That's just one exercise, and you just got to keep doing it and doing it. And you'll feel it more and more as time goes on. But you don't have control over your salivary glands, so it's not something you can just decide to release saliva in your mouth, okay? You have to fool yourself, and this is a way to do that. And I think it demonstrates the tears work the same way, your body works the same way. When you believe it enough, your body will respond. And so by doing the sense memories over and over and over again, and the four starter sense memories are feel the sun, have a cup of coffee, shave or put on makeup, and take a shower. And so you have to do one for real and one imaginarily. My word. You have to send me royalties if you use it. And you do them over and over and over again. And I mean, in Strasberg's class, you did it for a year solid of continuing to do these sense memory exercises. And what happens is, obviously, you start to get better at feeling, really feeling what you're not feeling. Okay? And so when you get better at that, then when you go back to the memory and you start thinking about, oh, Fluffy and the steamroller, right? It's like, oh, you start to really smell what the air was like on that day. And the wet asphalt because it was misty or raining, and you feel all these more. And what happens is, at some point, you completely fill up with emotion, right? And if in the case of Fluffy, probably sadness, and you cry. And when that happens, and when the memory is 7 years in your past, according to Strasberg, and it triggers this way through the senses, it's what Strasberg called a golden key. And that means it will work forever. It's not going to change. So as you do it, instead of like thinking of a memory I mentioned before, it makes you jaded to it, and it works less and less and less. When you trigger it this way through the senses, it actually gets faster and faster each time you trigger. So each time you do it, pretty soon, it may have taken you 5 or 10 or 20 minutes the first time. Pretty soon you get it down to 1 minute and 30 seconds, and then 15 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds, you can use that on set. And it's good forever. I mean, it's always going to be, that's going to trigger whatever it triggers. So that's a huge tool and benefit to an actor, right? You could have a golden key for whatever emotions you think you need. And what I tell my students is, you don't need every kind of anger, right? You don't need to trigger that. You just trigger anger. And then the imaginary circumstances in the scene, as the other character talks, your anger will become jealous anger or rage or frustration or whatever it needs to be in the scene. So if you just get the basic happy, sad, afraid, angry, emotions, and then you pretty much can go with that and let the imaginary circumstances color the emotion, right? You can always look for specific golden keys for frustration type of anger, jealous kind of anger, embarrassed anger, and that's fine. But it becomes a technique you can use as soon as you have the basic emotions. So that is one side of what method acting is and how it works. Many people are fooled by it because they'll be doing the effective memory exercise, and their mind will wander a little bit. And when it does, they start thinking of the story rather than the senses. So as I'm trying to feel the air and hear what was going on when Fluffy and the steamroller met, as I'm doing that and trying to focus on the senses, I start thinking about that night and poor Fluffy and all that kind of stuff, and that makes me cry. Well, then it wasn't triggered in the right way. I'm going to know this as I keep doing it, and it gets harder to trigger rather than easier. So that's how you'll know. That's your litmus test. But I have seen many actors fool themselves into thinking it worked when they didn't really trigger it right. So what happens is you have to go back to where you were. So as your mind wanders to the story of the memory, then you have to stop and say, okay, back. What did I hear? Pick one sense and focus on that sense to get you back into the senses, okay? Because everybody's mind wanders sometimes, and that's the way you get it back, okay? Another time I'm going to talk to you about objects, but I think we've gone far enough today. That is a big part of what method acting actually is, okay? Objects is a whole other realm of method, and it gives you more tools. But as I said before, I can't teach method acting in a quick video, okay? So that is what method acting is. I hope I don't piss off too many people, and I hope the comments are positive. But if they're negative, I will take them to heart before I delete them, okay? I promise. Thanks for listening.